Good day. It's Friday, and this is the Debrief. I'm Byron Pitts at our New York studios. Top stories today, day 21 of the government shutdown. We'll have the latest on the missing teen found alive in Wisconsin and the very latest on R. Kelly. Here are today's headlines.
President Trump's former lawyer is set to tell his story to Congress. Michael Cohen will testify publicly before the House Oversight Committee next month. It comes 1 month before he heads to prison. He's set to serve 3 years for lying about hush money payoffs to hide the president's alleged affairs.
Royal Caribbean says its Oasis of the Seas cruise ship is cutting its journey short after 277 passengers and crew members have been infected with a norovirus. Looks like the strike is on. A Los Angeles judge has found no reason to delay a strike by 35,000 public school teachers, now set for Monday.
China is literally on the dark side of the moon. Pictures on state broadcaster CCTV show the country's rover moving away from its lander via a relay satellite.
Tennis star Andy Murray says he plans to retire after Wimbledon because of his hip injury.
I said to my team, look, I think I can kind of get through this until Wimbledon. That is where I would like to. That's where I would like to stop playing. But I'm also not certain I'm able to do that.
We start this day with a bit of good news. A 13-year-old girl missing since October in Wisconsin has been found alive. Alex Perez is in Wisconsin with the latest. Alex.
Hey, Byron, this is the moment family members, investigators have been waiting for the last 3 months. 13-year-old Jamie Kloss found alive, safe and sound. Now, authorities say this all unfolded on Thursday. They say Jamie somehow freed herself from her captor, was able to get away, was running outside. She spotted a woman who was walking a dog and was able to get that woman's attention. That woman then took Jamie to a neighbor, and together they called 911, and that's when police arrived and found her. That neighbor says Jamie looked thinner. She looked a little disheveled. They say she was wearing shoes that were clearly too big for her. Now, shortly after authorities arrived and found Jamie, they arrested a suspect in this case. At this point, we do not have a lot of details about that suspect. It was back on October 15th that Jamie vanished. She disappeared. Authorities were called to her home here in Barron, Wisconsin, and that's when they discovered, after a suspicious 911 call, that both of her parents had been murdered and Jamie was gone. Now, authorities have been looking for her ever since then. There were volunteers, hundreds of them, who scoured the rural areas here trying to find any sign of Jamie. Investigators, the FBI, federal and state investigators, and local working all of this time to try to track her down. We know Jamie was taken to a local hospital to be examined, and we expect that she will be reunited with her family very soon. And we also expect that we will learn more about that suspect that police are questioning and more about this investigation very soon. Byron?
Alex Perez in Wisconsin, thank you so much. Today, day 21 of the government shutdown. We go now to Washington, the White House, and our Karen Travers. Karen, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. On day 21,
yes.
Byron, and there is no signs of any compromise. Negotiations are at a standstill. Lawmakers yesterday on Capitol Hill throwing their hands up and saying, essentially, we're not budging. Nothing is going to happen. So it certainly looks like the shutdown continues at least for the next couple of days. And if it goes into tomorrow, it would make it the longest government shutdown in history.
And so that means people are going without paychecks today. What's been the response? Is there any appreciation, you think, in the White House? Are there people who depend on their salaries to sustain their lives?
Byron, this question has been put to the president several times in the last few weeks. And the president's line last weekend was, I can relate to those federal workers who are anxious about missing a paycheck. There was a bit of blowback to that comment, of course, no surprise there. But yesterday, the president was asked down in Texas how long he thinks this shutdown will go, and he notably didn't answer by talking about the 800,000 federal workers, some of whom start today not getting a paycheck, that first paycheck missed. And he said that he is thinking most about the families that have lost loved ones due to crimes committed by undocumented immigrants.
Certainly the White House is working hard to control the narrative. I know the president, as you said, was at the border yesterday. He appeared on cable television to make the case. Is there any sense that he's winning over people, or is it still where it's been since this all started?
You know, he certainly hasn't convinced anybody on Capitol Hill to budge a bit. The Democrats have dug in their heels on this. They are not giving the president the money he wants for the border wall. So we've seen the president in recent days inching closer to declaring a national emergency, which the White House says would allow him to take money that has been appropriated for one thing and put it toward building a border wall. There's a lot of grumbling right now from even some of from the president's own party about the precedent that this would set. But yesterday, down in Texas, the president spoke to Fox News' Sean Hannity about this. Here's what he had to say.
If we don't make a deal with Congress, most likely I will do that. I would actually say I would. I can't imagine any reason why not, because I'm allowed to do it. The law is 100% on my side.
And Byron, there will absolutely be legal challenges if and when the president goes down this route. Already rumblings from Democrats on the Hill that they would consider doing it, but not clear that they would pursue that option. But here's the situation then. If the president does do that and then it immediately is challenged in court, nothing happens. You know, he doesn't get that money. The shovels aren't going out to start building the wall, but it could be an off-ramp to ending this standoff right now. Congress could pass legislation then that reopens the government. No funding for the border wall. Perhaps the president signs it because he will feel okay saying to his supporters, we've got this other money coming because of the national emergency.
Karen Travers at the White House. Thank you so much, Karen. We go now to the border in Texas and talk to reporter Joey Carrera from KVIA TV to give us the latest on the situation there at our southern border.
I'm here at the USMexico border, and this is really a part of the central issue for the partial government shutdown. On Thursday, President Trump in McAllen, Texas, making a case for his more than $5 billion border wall, calling the whole situation a humanitarian and security crisis. We spoke to the former chief of the El Paso Border Patrol sector, Victor Manjares. He's now a professor at the University of Texas at El Paso. He says there are fewer arrests being made at the border, less than half of the more than 1 million made when he joined the agency in the 1980s. Despite those figures, Homeland Security still calls the amount of migrants we're seeing unprecedented. Manjares says the issue now is who is trying to come into the United States. He says the immigration system is better equipped to handle individual Mexican men, not family units from Central America, adding that asylum requests or administrative removals require more steps from immigration officials, more paperwork, which translates to less time in the field. And just this week, El Paso police arrested a 23-year-old Guatemalan migrant. He's accused of entering a motel room and allegedly sexually assaulting a woman, also from Guatemala, both of them being housed at a motel, a local shelter set up for them. And the shelter says the surge of migrants is now over. In our region, in Texas and New Mexico, we're home to thousands of federal employees who will not be getting a paycheck today, both states offering help through unemployment benefits. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick actually missing the first day of the legislative session to attend a border security meeting in Washington, D.C. Just on Thursday, we also learned that he told the president that Texas would actually build part of the border wall as long as the federal government reimbursed the state. Where exactly that would be, he did not mention. Reporting in El Paso, Texas at the U.S.-Mexico border, Joey Carrera, ABC News, live.
Our thanks to Joey. Today, the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria has begun. We go now to the Pentagon and Louis Martinez. Louis, this caught many by surprise that this is actually underway. Fill us in.
That's right, Byron. Surprising in the timing of the announcement itself, but what we're really talking about here is the removal of equipment of that U.S. forces in Syria have been using. Let's not forget, there are 2,000 American troops in Syria. They have lots of equipment. They have standing orders from the president, as we know from late December, that the 2,000 troops should move out. But what we don't have are the actual orders or the timeline for when they need to move out by. We heard 30 days at one point, then it got extended to 4 months because of the need to remove all of that equipment that the United States has put into Syria. So a U.S. official telling ABC News that what we are seeing right now is the removal of some of the equipment, but not necessarily U.S. troops. There's an interesting thing that happens when you need to remove troops. You actually have to send additional troops to break down the gear, to break down the facilities, and then exit back into out of the country. And maybe that's what we saw with when we heard reports earlier today that there was maybe a convoy of 10 pieces of equipment, 10 pieces of vehicles that were making their way into Iraq from Syria. But very important to note that this is in keeping with the timeline, in keeping with the president's directive that U.S. troops withdraw, but not necessarily that those forces have begun to leave yet.
So technically, I guess then the numbers will swell some before they go down, as you said, to bring in this extra support to bring out the equipment.
That's right. So the numbers will swell incrementally at some point. We don't know by how much. A lot of the planning is still underway, Byron, as to how the pace of the timeline for the departure of U.S. troops from Syria, about how much will be left behind, when that withdrawal of forces is actually going to begin. Now, we know we're talking about equipment, but you can say that, yes, definitely pulling out equipment is a withdrawal of the U.S. forces because that is the gear that they need. Now, it's not necessarily the gear that they need for all of their missions, which is why you're seeing that the 2,000 troops, for the most part, are still remaining inside Syria right now.
Louis Martinez at the Pentagon. Louis, thank you so very much.
Thanks, Byron.
We turn now to the R. Kelly story. Our Lindsay Davis, who's been on top of the story since it broke in recent days, has this report. Lindsay.
Hey, Byron, R. Kelly's lawyer is pushing back on all fronts with regard to both current and past allegations. As for the current claims that R. Kelly is keeping two young ladies against their will, the lawyer says, look, I personally sat down with them and they're happy.
Can you describe the physical abuse? I wish that I would have been able to see the fullness of the monster I was dealing with.
In the midst of an onslaught of allegations, defiance from R. Kelly's attorney.
We know what happened, and we know those things didn't happen. The man was not operating a harem or a sex cult or holding people hostage or anything like that.
Stephen Greenberg speaking to us on R. Kelly's behalf for the first time since the release of the Lifetime docuseries Surviving R. Kelly.
Do you know if he plans to have any legal action against anyone?
Well, hopefully he'll sue Lifetime.
For what? Defamation of character?
For defamation, because people shouldn't be able to do this to someone.
And regarding those decades-long claims that Kelly is involved with minors,
does he deny ever having a sexual relationship with someone who was under the age of consent?
Yes. He absolutely does.
Was he married to Aaliyah when she was 15?
He was married to her when she was 15. Elvis was married to Priscilla.
But so then 15 is not of the age of legal consent, right? I mean...
Right, except that my understanding is that she did not claim to be 15. And in order to get married, she had to lie about her age.
And he is saying that he had no idea?
No idea.
Also responding to current allegations being made by the Savage family. They say R. Kelly is holding their daughter Joycelyn against her will right now.
No one ever complained about anything till some producer came and found them.
Well, that's not exactly true, because the Savages do have police reports that they've filed, right, saying that R. Kelly's former manager and current manager threatened them, and that's been documented by police.
Well, so Mr. Savage, and I hate to diss used car salesman, but as a used car salesman, who first made allegations, and when he first made allegations, he had his younger daughter present a video blasting R. Kelly saying, she's going to be a rap star. He's in this for his own personal gain.
All of this coming on the heels of Lady Gaga's announcement that she's pulled her 2013 collaboration with R. Kelly, Do What You Want, from streaming services.
Lady Gaga did a song with him in 2013, and there were no problems. Now, there were rumors about Mr. Kelly back then. What has changed between then and now? I'll tell you what's changed between then and now. She says, if I don't disclaim my association with them, it might hurt my chance to get an Oscar. That's exactly what it is.
And now joining the chorus of voices condemning R. Kelly, his own daughter, the oldest of his 3 children, who wrote a lengthy post calling her dad a monster, saying, quote, "I am well aware of who and what he is. I grew up in that house." Byron.
Lindsay Davis in Chicago, thank you so very much. Next up, vacation nightmare. Imagine you're taking that dream cruise vacation and suddenly everyone around you starts to get sick. Well, that's what's happening now. We go now to Miami, Florida, and our Victor Okendo with the latest. Victor, tell us about this story. This seems so sad.
Byron, this is just a nightmare, and whatever got these people sick, it spread, and it spread quickly. Now Royal Caribbean tells us that rather than have everyone worry about their health, they're just going to go ahead and bring that ship right back to Florida earlier than expected. We are talking about hundreds of passengers and crew members falling ill aboard the Oasis of the Seas. Royal Caribbean tells ABC News 277 passengers and crew members suffered an episode of gastrointestinal illness. Passengers we spoke with said people were nervous to leave their rooms once these symptoms started spreading. Listen to what one woman who got sick had to say.
Around 2 o'clock, I woke up just really not feeling well at all, just kind of having some issues, like very upset stomach, nauseated. I was just concerned for my dad's health because I know he doesn't typically get sick a lot.
Her father got sick as well. The Oasis of the Seas is one of the biggest ships in the world. It is decked out with 2-story suites, a high dive pool, even a zip line. Nearly 9,000 people were on board this ship. It was a 7-day cruise going throughout the Caribbean. It left on Sunday. By Tuesday, as the ship was approaching Jamaica, that is when people started experiencing these symptoms. Jamaican officials tell us that they actually sent teams of doctors on board the ship to help out. Now, what the crew is constantly doing, they are cleaning every inch of that ship up there, wiping down anything that people might touch. So lounge areas, dining areas, even pool handrails, not taking any chances there. And now the Oasis of the Seas is due back at Port Canaveral tomorrow. Byron?
Sounds miserable. Have the passengers, have they been pleased with how Royal Caribbean has responded to this?
A few of the passengers that we spoke with have actually said, look, we know that things can happen on cruises, and Royal Caribbean has done a good job. The company did promise a full refund for all those on board. We should also mention, though, that the CDC is planning to investigate here, and Royal Caribbean has taken samples from these people that they plan on giving to the CDC as they begin their investigation.
Victor Okendo in Miami. Thank you so much, Victor. We turn now to the weather and our Ginger Z.
All right, Byron, thank you. We have so much to talk about, but we got to start with what just happened. In parts of western New York, Pennsylvania, northeastern Ohio, like Cleveland, you had slide-offs because of the lake effect snow. It actually added up anywhere from 12 to up to 15 inches in western New York. So some of the other pictures that you ended up seeing included this one out of Seneca Falls, New York, where you have the plow not even being able to handle the icy roads. So where do we go from here? It's the next storm. We've got to talk about from eastern Colorado right through Kansas. This is kind of Friday night into Saturday. You've got kind of the heart of it for St. Louis to Indianapolis. That's Saturday, and then by the time it moves to the Mid-Atlantic, it's Sunday. I'll time it all out here for you. You see the northern fringe of this from Kansas right through Kansas City. It starts Friday night and then really ramps up overnight into early Saturday. So I think you end up, by the time you reach Saturday night, with somewhere between 3 and 6 inches of snow. So if you're in Decatur, Illinois, you're in Indianapolis, right north of Paducah, say north of Henryville, that's going to be right on those heavy band lines. Check out this image, though, because that's Sunday morning. It looks like that big high-pressure system to the north is trying its best to eat away at the northern half of this. It's cold, it's dry, so that low is really running up against something and not interacting any longer with something that's going to lift. That means that I do think that Virginia still gets snow. I think that very far north and in western North Carolina you get snow, West Virginia certainly. I think Maryland into South New Jersey would be the cutoff line then, and that would be where the lighter snow falls. So we're still watching this one. I can promise you, though, that you will start off the weekend on a very cold note, even colder tomorrow morning right here in the Northeast. Byron.
Ginger Z, thank you so much. Now, please tune into Briefing Room Politics Show at 3:30 this afternoon, World News Prime at 8 p.m., and, of course, download the app. That is the debrief for the day. I'm Byron Pitts. Have a good one.